Story 1. As someone who has worked in prisons, for the love of God, do not get involved in any prison gangs unless you plan to stay in for way longer than you need to. Also, if you are cool with the guards, they will likely vouch for you and offer you jobs that do not suck. Story 2. This one interests me. Never share anything personal with your cellmate. It was a comment from long ago, but a guy had a cellmate who was asking for details, so he just told him a lot of nonsense. Good thing too, because he had a court hearing for a lighter sentence, and his cellmate testified against him. Since it was nonsense that didn't make sense, they dismissed him. Story 3. Mind your own business. This solves most problems. Observe, do not speak. You will learn a lot from watching. The rest is spoken rules. You will find someone to give you a rundown because every state has its own nuances, and each prison does too. Story 4. Have you ever seen the movie Let's Go to Prison 2006? Dax Shepard has a brilliant line. Have you ever heard of something boring or mundane being described as like a prison? This is what they are referring to. Frankly, prison is boring 9 times out of 10. I've never gone as an inmate, but in my volunteer days, our ambulance was the first to respond to a supermaximum prison. Did we get legitimate calls out of there? Sure, a handful of times. I can still remember my driver, and one of my best friends to this day, yelling at prison guards to let the paramedic inside because we need his drugs on one notable call. But most times our calls there were boring. Often it was inmates faking seizures to get out of the prison for a little while. Not to escape, but just to not be in prison for a little while. Like all they wanted was to chill out somewhere with a TV just for them and nurses to comment on their workout gains. Pro tip. If you think someone is faking being unconscious, hold their hand just over their face and drop it. If it slaps them, they are unconscious. If it slows down or doesn't hit their face, they are faking. About one hand's length over their face will do it and won't hurt them. Story 5. Reputation is the real currency. If you're seen as a punk, people are going to treat you like a punk. If you get caught stealing from other inmates, they're going to beat you like a thief. And you better have clean paperwork proving your charges don't involve women or children, because if you're a pedophile, sex offender, or wife beater, or just can't prove that you aren't one of those things, you are royally in trouble. Story 6. So here's me. 331 misdemeanors forced me into taking my plea of 2 to 6 and another 2 to 6, which ran consecutive with each other, totaling 12 years. I did 13 months at a regional jail and the rest between a high, medium, low, and finally a camp. A lot of what you're seeing here is TV, movies, and YouTube talking, and yeah, a lot of it is accurate. The thing is, none of it is unspoken. You'll be told all of this dozens of times from different people on both sides of the gate. Real unspoken rules. During shutdown, it's important to maintain near silence. Avoid yelling, banging on desks or doors, or doing anything that might disrupt your neighbor's sleep. Don't be afraid to throw a fade if you need to. It'll get rid of the stress, solve a few problems, and keep you cut. Just remember it's only a fade. Look out for your friends trying to put a battery in your back. Good way to make a few enemies and spend a while in the hole. Don't gamble even if you're a pro. They cheat all day and will push a knife to get a honey bun. When you get your release date, don't tell anyone. Let them figure it out when they come get you. If you're lucky, it'll be after lights out. Story 7. More of a general rule, but don't be foolish. Your behavior can lead to punishment for the entire section, and now you've got everyone mad at you all at once. Story 8. Believe nothing you hear, and only half of what you see. Do your own time. Don't do anyone else's. Don't let anyone do your time for you. Don't mess with people's food. If it's not yours, don't touch it. All you have is your word. If you don't have that, you better have hands. If you don't have hands, you'd better have money. If you don't have money, you've got no hope. If you can't afford it, don't pretend. Story 9. Probably not relevant in today's prisons, but my dad was in jail in the 1980s before the prisons had decent plumbing. They had a bucket for a toilet. An unspoken rule was that you don't defecate in the bucket. You put a plastic bag around it and defecate in that. My dad got into a fight with his cellmate because he didn't know. Story 10. Never tell any other inmate the details of your crime that are not already known or alleged, especially in county. Too many guys are looking for a ticket out or a lighter sentence. Do not ever fully instill your trust in anyone, no matter how well acquainted you get. Don't fart in common areas. You could legitimately get beaten up for that. No freebies, ever. You will be taken advantage of if you give things away to make friends without getting anything in return. If anyone tries or succeeds in taking your belongings, it's time to fight. The only time it's okay to give things away for free is if you're literally on your way out the door. Do not neglect showering. The cell is an inmate's only sanctuary, and they don't take kindly to people stinking it up. You'll learn to appreciate that too. God forbid you ever go in. When using the toilet, flush in between to avoid stinking the place up. Either sit down when you urinate, or be sure to wipe it up immediately. As messed up as it is to say, it's best to stick with your own race or ethnicity when it comes to socializing in long-term associations. I won't get into the reasons why. Mind your business. That about covers the basics. Story 11. Lots of funny responses, but in all seriousness, 1. If others want to know what you are in for, tell them straight away. Otherwise, you will be labeled as a sex pest by default. Don't call anyone champ. It could get you beaten or stabbed. Don't help others too much. If you supply extra food or other goods, you might be seen as someone to extort. Don't get too friendly with the correctional officers except for basic needs. You will come out a better criminal than when you went in. You are here because you drove without a license for 4 years? Here, let me place you with murderers, extortionists, top drug dealers, and enforcers. If you're a sex pest, ignore all these rules and go about your business. You will either have to choose between protective custody or facing serious harm. Story 12. Do not pass gas around anyone eating. Always wash your hands after using the restroom, urinating, or defecating. Always pay your debts. Do not call anyone a difficult person or a weak person unless you are ready to fight. Maintain your personal hygiene. Always shower with your sandals on. Be prepared to be teased. Be ready for a significant amount of inappropriate talk or jokes. Find a hustle, whether it is running a store, drawing adult content, selling drugs, or other activities. Respect is probably the most important. Story 13. Make sure you have your paperwork. Mind your business. Keep yourself and your cell clean. Don't get in debt. Mind your damn business and do your time. The simple. Story 14. 1. First thing to do is find your race representative and get a rundown of the rules. Who you can eat with, hang with, bunk with, etc. Never butt into a conversation unless invited. Don't get involved in gambling at the poker table. Payback can be harsh with up to 50% interest per week. You don't get to make up your own nickname, so don't do foolish things, or a bad nickname will follow you. Disrespect leads to pain. Watch your surroundings, especially those behind you. It's best to keep a wall behind you. Use a courtesy flush when using the bathroom. Clean your urine off the toilet seat. Pass gas in the toilet area. 10. Keep quiet at night, especially if you are in a crowded dorm situation. 11. Very important. Snitches do face consequences, often severe. If you have to talk to a guard, make sure another inmate is present. Even the accusation of talking to the guards alone can get you hurt. Story 15. Mind your business. Don't go into debt. Handle any disrespect with immediate action. Don't look like prey, but don't act hard. Keep your circle tight. Work out regularly as war is always right around the corner. Story 16. 1. Respect others' space. Do not go into someone's area or touch their things without asking. Mind your own business. Avoid gossip or getting involved in other people's issues. Do not lie or snitch. Honesty and loyalty are important in prison. Stay clean and organized. Hygiene and keeping your space neat can earn respect. Choose your friends wisely. Be careful who you trust, as alliances can affect your safety. When I was volunteering in Pittsburgh prison, I saw both good and bad things. Good stories. Some inmates worked hard to improve themselves. I met a man who learned to read in prison and started writing letters to his children. He said it gave him hope. There was a group that helped new inmates adjust. They shared tips on staying safe and avoiding trouble. Bad stories. I heard about fights breaking out over small issues, like someone cutting in line or borrowing things without asking. Some inmates struggled with loneliness, especially those who did not have visitors or family to support them. Prison life is tough, but I also saw moments of kindness and change. It showed me how people can grow, even in hard situations. Story 17. Do your own time, clean up after yourself, and stand up for yourself, win or lose, if you want to be respected. Do not snitch. To avoid potential issues, avoid gossip, gambling, or loans of any kind. Story 18. I knew a guy who was a guard at one. He said that the unspoken rule was that you only feed your own race. This is followed up by a story about someone asking for another person's leftovers, both being of different races, and the person who gave up his leftovers got beaten senseless. Story 19. Once you've sobered up and realized how much you've messed up, start working out and reading. Develop a routine. Work your way up to an easy job by not talking and avoiding drawing attention to yourself. Initially, it's like high school where the weak are easily identified. Dedicate at least 30 minutes daily to push-ups, squats, crunches, pull-ups, jumping jacks, burpees, and shadow boxing. This is important both to ease your own anxiety and to demonstrate that you are ready and capable to defend yourself. Find your expertise even if you're physically weak. You won't be bothered if you have something significant to contribute. Everyone has a skill or attribute that they can use to gain favor. If not, develop one. Being literate alone is a huge advantage, as a large number of inmates are functionally illiterate. Story 20. Special officers must sit near the guards during meal times, or they risk death. As a former correctional officer, I know this to be true. If inmates can get a special officer by themselves, they will do any number of things to make them pay for what they did. Story 21. Find the biggest guy and make him your subordinate. What is that? That's the biggest guy in here, right next to a steaming bowl of foreshadowing. Story 22. Don't start any trouble, and there won't be any trouble. You hope. And if there is some and you're not immediately involved, back away slowly. Or quickly if necessary. Keep your hands off other people's belongings. If you don't want something on your tray, there's likely someone else who does and will trade for it. Story 23. Mind your own business. Don't bother anyone, especially if they're trying to sleep, shower, or use the bathroom. If you have extra of something that you're not going to use and someone else needs it, let them have it and they'll find a way to return the favor. Be cool. Be respectful, especially if someone is very young or very old. I never did hard time in prison or anything like that. I never interacted with anyone who was serving a life sentence. But I'll never forget a second of the time I spent in jail. Movies and television really exaggerate and dramatize what it's like. Going to jail is absolutely never a part of anyone's plan in life. It's an extremely dark and low time for everyone. Everyone in jail has lost family, friends, jobs, homes, and even teeth. Everyone is unsure about what their future is going to be like. I was never worried about accidentally breaking any unspoken rules because the only real unspoken rule was that we were all that we had, and the last thing we wanted to do was fight with each other. I met some of the most humble, supportive, and down-to-earth people in jail. Story 24. I've watched a fair share of Larry Lawton videos on YouTube, and one thing he mentioned being on the lookout for is seeing what people were wearing on their feet. If things were casual, then things would mostly be fine. But if people were wearing boots in a group or at certain times of the day, something was probably going to happen. Story 25. I have a question. Is it true that prisoners really go out of their way to target pedophiles if they find out that's what you are in for? Or does everyone just pretty much mind their own business? Story 26. Believe nothing you hear, and only half of what you see. Do your own time. Don't do anyone else's. Don't let anyone do your time for you. Don't mess with people's food. If it's not yours, don't touch it. All you have is your word. If you don't have that, you better have hands. If you don't have hands, you better have money. If you don't have money, you've got no hope. If you can't afford it, don't pretend you can. Likely one of the most important rules of etiquette. You're likely only passing through as a visitor, whether it's months or years. But some people are there for life. It's their home. Treat it that way. Don't go into someone else's home and act like your stuff doesn't stink. Story 27. Everyone instinctually self-divides along racial lines. It's our primal response as a highly violent species seeking protection and kinship in an uncertain and volatile environment. Story 28. Shut your mouth. Keep your head down. Don't eat the honey bun. And most importantly, be quiet. You can talk with others doing the same thing, but don't break that vow. You will be met by your own race and feel intimidated to join, but just say no and mind your own business. Chains are already heavy to pull, and you don't want that extra weight. Story 29. The biggest rule of prison life is to keep yourself as anonymous as possible. Keep your head down, be quiet, and don't draw attention to yourself, and the rest will make sense. Story 30. Larry Lawton has like 29 great videos on this subject. Check out his YouTube channel. Spoiler: good manners are the key in and out of prison. Simple respect and good manners. Story 31. Canada. Don't let your cell door slam. Flush every log as soon as it hits the bowl. Sit to pee. Not a rule, but keep orange peels as a natural air freshener. The original cellmate I had said to put them under your sheet at the corner of the pad.